Hi everyone, just forgot to mention one thing in the last video. Let me just go to a blank page. So when we were discussing the chronology of the Egyptian civilization, we talked about the pre-dynastic period, right? That was the first one. Then there was also an early dynastic period, but because that has not been mentioned in my notes, I'm not going to be going over it. But please Wikipedia it for sure and look it up. And this early dynastic period runs from 3000 BC to 2650 BC. So make sure you go and take a look at that period. It's still there. I'm just not talking about it. Okay, so I talked about the pre-dynastic period, and now I'm stepping right into the Old Kingdom. Alright, so the Old Kingdom is from 2650 BC to 2180 BC. Okay, now we're gonna introduce something called dynasties, and we have dynasties up till I don't know 26th or something. We'll see as we go along. So these kingdoms have been assigned several dynasties, and so these dynasties are grouped into these different periods, and then we talk about them collectively. So let's start. So the Old Kingdom spans over 525 years. It was a long, prosperous period. The Archaic and the Old Kingdom periods were the great formative era of Egyptian civilization, the time when Upper and Lower Egypt were first united politically. Okay, so this is important to know. The Old Kingdom were the great formative era of Egyptian civilization, when the time when Upper and Lower Egypt were first united politically. And then there were these Egyptian forms of writing, architecture, administration, and ideology. They started growing, people started, doing art stuff and so on. There were no rival states or enemies. It was a very prosperous period. It's a prosperous period. Everything's going nice and smooth. The capital is at Memphis. Now we'll try and keep a record of this, okay, as we move along. And after this video, I'll create a new page, and then we'll keep referring to that over and over again, because we're going to be talking about capitals in every dynasty, no, every period, I think. So I'll make sure we keep a track of those. Monuments are built with paid labor, artisans. So there's monument building. That's another important feature. Monument building flourished. And what kind of monuments are we talking about? Pyramids. The pharaoh. Now, the concept of pharaoh arises here. The pharaoh is a divine king and the head of the state. All officials are responsible to him, and theoretically, the pharaoh owns all of Egypt's resources. So, the pharaoh is a rich guy. Okay, he owns everything. And wazir, the way I like to pronounce it, he's the first minister, and he is sort of like the secretary of the pharaoh. He is a minister who is responsible for running the country, obviously under the pharaoh's discretion. Okay, discretion. Um, Marked by the building of pyramids. So we talked about monument building here. These buildings are mostly pyramids. They were fond of making pyramids. Now, evolved from mastaba. Now, what is a mastaba? A mastaba is something like a pyramid, except it's not as organized or not as complicated or not as sophisticated as the pyramid. So mastaba is like a less evolved form of pyramids. Okay, why were pyramids built? Because pharaohs were intermediary between humans and gods, so it was important to preserve them. Okay, so that's important. So reason for building pyramids, I'll just mark it here: preservation of kings, shorter than writing pharaohs. So pyramids, what are they representing? They're representing political order and state religion headed by a god king, and they're demonstrating the ability of king to deploy resources to build them. So they could go as far as deploying, resources that might otherwise be used for something else just to build them. This is how important these pyramids were. Okay, so this is like a general intro into the Old Kingdom. We will now specifically talk about the Dynasty 3. I'm just giving you a glimpse of it. Dynasty 4. Then we talk about, come on, where are you, Dynasty 5? Dynasty 5, Dynasty 6, and that's it. And then we move on to the first intermediate period. So this is not so bad, so I'll see you guys in the next video.